We're back. It's our second 3-map series of the night. It will, of course, be our last 3-map series of the night. And yeah, it's been an adventure. Our first map was very, very one-sided in favor of Cloud9. We moved over onto Haven, and it started out massively one-sided for BOOGERMEN. Cloud9 started a little bit of a comeback, but just weren't able to topple BOOGERMEN. And that was meant to be the kind of neutral ground for these two teams. Ascent being Cloud9's best map, Haven kind of neutral ground. Now we're moving on over to Split. And this is touted as BOOGERMEN's best map, one of their two best maps. If we go by that trend, there's a very good chance that Booger walk away with this win, and like just the sentence Booger wins. I can't wrap my head around it, Moxie. I don't know about you. It has nothing to do with the teams and everything to do with the specific words.
I mean, I can't wrap my head around the words Viper. Viper viable? What? Because they've really tried.
Viper
right?
has the highest win rate in this entire tournament, so...
Probably because she's been played the least in this entire tournament.
Shh, don't tell them that. We want them to believe
Guys,
the Viper is
maps
viable.
in maps that Viper wins. Who would have known? But Riot have really been trying to push Viper into us. Every single patch, it seems, that we have in Valorant, an agent gets nerfed, and Viper gets buffed. That's the way it is. And so I'm very interested to see whether or not she is going to go for that Viper, or whether or not we're going to see him stick with what he's been running, which is that Cypher. Viper obviously has a lot of viability on Split, being that you can just wall, you can toxic screen, you can buy so much space in mid or cut through an entire point. In fact, when Valorant first came out, I knew a ton of people who, do you know what, I'm going to completely disown if ever asked an actual person, who played Viper and would just toxic screen. They would only toxic screen on A, and it was an absolute disaster to walk into. And sometimes it worked out really well, and other times, you know, they got pushed on B and they said to me, oh, gee, I wish I hadn't done that so early on in the round.
Yeah. But we got some stats, so we'll throw some stats at you. We'll get those up. And this is from the previous round, so we'll have a look here. And, well, wouldn't you know it, 10's doing really well, but Relic's doing even better. A 308 combat score and 22 kills. He's absolutely popping off. Conversely, the best player on BOOGERMEN's team is Welshie, who managed to get 19 kills. That's dangerously close to Relix's 22, and he's the Cypher, Moxie.
But you want to have a look at sort of progress and comparisons between how BOOGERMEN have been getting on in terms of that leaderboard. Intox has been able to make a big leap upwards. He was a lot more comfortable. I think we saw him really come into his own up on that second map of Haven, and it's reflected in the scoreboards. Look at that kill to death ratio. It may not be on the same level as 22 to 16, which is what Relix is boasting about, but Breach is a lot less about how many kills you're able to, you know, provide yourself, but more so set your team up. And we are going to see a little bit more team play, I think, especially with those assists free being a little bit more than previously seen. And you know what? We were promised it, and it's there. BOOGERMEN are coming
BOOGERMEN deliver.
With the Viper. And this, I think, is where we're going to have some very interesting standpoints, because Cloud9 Blue, when I've watched their previous VODs, Split especially, they are very, very careful to never establish a proper default, which means BOOGERMEN won't have an easy way of knowing where the team is pushing, won't have an easy way of putting up this toxic screen to find value.
Well, the toxic screen goes up in the same place just about every single offense, but it doesn't really matter because Relix is just going to play sight and take down 3 players. 10s will get the 4th. The last person standing is the Viper. I mean, that's yeah, flawless. Thank you, Valorant. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Well, it's going to be interesting as well to see how BOOGERMEN want to play with this Viper when it comes to losing that pistol. Are you going to try and move in as quickly as possible and save all of the Viper utility in case it becomes a question of the recontest, or are you going to burn it very early as we saw in that first round, where you either use it as a bait play or to get your team safe passage. It seems like it's going to be a bait play. The Viper is alone in a lobby right now. Cloud9 Blue will be keeping an eye on that one. This was where BOOGERMEN really tried to hard commit onto. That last time around, and especially now seeing that toxic screen, they want to keep a particular eye on Heaven. All the while BOOGERMEN...
Based on the previous games that we watched from BOOGERMEN. Yeah, based on BOOGERMEN's previous games, this is kind of what they do. They put that wall on A, they make a little bit of a bait, and then they allow the rest of their team to move through mid. And so now, with the Viper, with Welshi dying all the way on A site, they've kind of made Blue believe that it's going to be an A fake towards B, and there's a slight rotation towards B. But in the meantime, they're moving up through ropes, and they're going to be pushing out onto A site. No, it's the double bait, but they're running straight into the rest of C9. Okay, we saw this with T1 versus Envy, the like double, triple bait fake. It doesn't work, guys. Pick a direction, commit to it. You can fake once, don't try and do it 2 or 3 times.
See, it seemed when they went for that B and then they immediately spiraled back to A, they wanted to have their cake and eat it. They wanted the fake push, but they also still wanted the Viper utility to come into play. They wanted to fall back to that toxic screen and force Cloud9 Blue into that position where they can't just commit from windows onto A. They can't just go through Heaven. Because now we're going to see again that Viper utility. This time I'm actually going to go into main, not out just yet. Oh, there it goes.
And the cool thing about this Viper wall is there's like a pixel spot where you can clear rafters from Heaven, but if you're the enemy team, you have to stand in the wall, so you kind of get decayed. It's that double-edged sword, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it's just the most epic bait ever as well. She has made his way all the way into ropes here. They have managed to trade out, so it's a 4v4. Never mind. Shinobi's going to bring the numbers in favor of Cloud9 here, because the execute onto A site hasn't actually happened yet. They're going to throw out the Rainer flash there and start moving on towards site so that they can get that plant. Spike is going to go down and they're going to get those post-plant positions. They've got the wall in place to deny sight from Heaven, and this is fantastic, which means they only have to cover a few angles. They will, however, need to be careful of the Viper fuel. That being said, if nobody pushes through Heaven, they're going to need to be careful for, well, C9 and all of their utility, because that's going to be a quick and easy defuse.
BOOGERMEN allowing C9 Blue to sort of dictate the pacing of that engagement as well. Not only do we see the nanoswarm, but we also see that flashpoint coming out. And BOOGERMEN are just trapped a little bit in the middle. They tried to delay C9 Blue, but it's just not enough. Losing that Viper early on means you lose a lot of what this composition is trying to do. You'll have that permanent utility, so if you're able to get in and force this issue to become that recontest, you have a lot of say in how C9 Blue are actually going to commit to that, and in terms of that, they'll be even further crippled by having to deal with Killjoy and Raze with those satchel packs, with those turrets, shutting down yet more sightlines. But to do that, you first got to get onto point.
I love this. They faked B or faked A so many times that Cloud9 are holding onto B site, leaving A somewhat undefended. So they do a full push towards the A site. They get one pick. The information gets fed across to Cloud9, but Cloud9 are too smart. They don't go for a full rotation. They move their Killjoy towards the A site. The Omen is going to kind of swing between the two sites, but now they've spotted out the player in mid, and that gives them all the information that they need to tell them that, yes, it is actually going to be a B push. And this is a great read from C9 Blue to not make those rotations too early. They're playing this really, really patiently. I talked about how they're a slightly impatient team at the start of this match, but now they're kind of playing against that. They've worked on that. They've figured that out. They've realized they need to play a little bit more methodically here. And BOOGERMEN wasting a ton of time. And we know how dangerous it is when you waste time. And there you go. The fruits of that, C9 will completely shut them down and stop any sort of a push onto the B site.
They're being very cautious on how they approach that B site. We're seeing a lot of pushes coming through from Heaven and towards mid, rather than through main. And normally you avoid main because you're running into a Cypher, and the Cypher caging camera is always going to catch you out before you actually have chance to retaliate it. It's always going to catch your toes before you can shoot it. It's one of the most annoying things about playing into a Cypher on this map. But you're not running into a Cypher. The one thing that you have to worry about is this Killjoy turret trying to pick you out, do the exact same thing as that Cypher camera, but Cypher cameras, we've discussed this in depth, they give you more information, much more information than that turret. That turret only gives you the information that there's someone there. It doesn't tell you the amount of numbers, and it doesn't tell you whether or not they actually want to stick around. So there is no real reason for BOOGERMEN to want to try and not push through main.
Oh, oopsie. Dev trying to push out gets taken down by Relix in mid, and that's unfortunate. Welshi now, last player standing in mid. The rest are kind of going for an A execute. This spike has already made its way towards A, but Relix is going to get yet another pick off there. And that's 2 down. C9 have basically won this round just off the back of playing a little bit too slow, a little bit too safe. Now BOOGERMEN, they're going to start the rotation towards the A site this time around. They didn't actually spot out Welshi in mid, which means that he's still alive and he's going to be able to back up his site or his raise. But are they actually going to be able to get something done? It's a 2v5 here? I don't think so.
Instinct is able to shoot the layer before the flash can properly affect Welshi, and so you are able to get tens. You can try and push into Mel. You've got the spike, but you will be walking into an uneven fight. That's the fact that just to make sure that you don't get caught before you're able to peek window. But Mitch is waiting in rafters, hears the sound, and just peeks out, and you are gone. BOOGERMEN, we know what they're trying to do. We know the places they're trying to go. They're really trying to pull the wool over Cloud9 Blue's eyes with all of these pushes, all of these different plays. But it is just not working out for them because they go for a little bit of mid-control, but because you're running that Viper, you can't really have that same amount of mid-control as if all of the utility is placed on mid. Instead, they're always putting it on this exact same angle, sectioned halfway between A and halfway between mid rather than on top of it.
Once again, going for that A execute. A lot of damage coming out here. Finally, we're starting to see some of that Viper utility coming out, trying to stagger out C9, allow themselves onto the point. And this is interesting because the Viper pit is going to come out in a save round. They're going to try and allow themselves a little bit of space to work with here. And hopefully the Viper pit is going to give them enough cover to kind of hold on. But C9 don't really want to give up on this. In fact, we're seeing another ultimate committed into this round. It's going to be the Killjoy lockdown as well. That's so much utility put into this. And Cloud9 are still 5 strong. Pulling out the showstopper.
Oh, the showstopper!
Nothing comes of it though. We've even got the Empress coming out here. BOOGERMEN throwing absolutely everything but the kitchen sink into this round. They do manage to win it, although I think calling it thrifty is a bit of a weird take. Ironic. Yes, they had no guns, sure, but they put every single ultimate they had just about into that round. And they had to, because their economy was in the drink. They needed to win so that they could fall by this round, and they've done just about nothing to C9's economy. C9 are still able to fall by.
C9 not able to come in with an operator quite yet, though. So that is a big victory for BOOGERMEN in terms of where you can play around this map. No one posted towards A other than that Viper utility. Cloud9 Blue making sure to keep an eye on that just in case it is another one of the fake pushes. BOOGERMEN looks like they actually want to take presence in Garage for the first time, taking advantage of the fact that there is no operator, that there is no Cypher. You do have to watch out for the lockdown though. Cloud9 Blue very willing, if they feel like it, to just give over that space, come in with that Killjoy ultimate.
I kind of mentioned before we had to take that fairly long break about how teams that play Viper, it feels like they don't actually know how to play Viper. They're just playing Viper because they were told that Viper is good on split. And honestly, Viper is good on split. It's so good at dissecting sites and creating space for your team. But BOOGERMEN don't seem to really have a handle on what they should be doing with that utility. And by that, I mean they're not really using the utility. The wall goes up on A on their attack, and that's used more of a bait than anything else. If they do wind up back on the A site, then they'll put the wall up to give themselves a little bit of cover. If they push B, then it's just meant as a bit of a bait, but then they don't have it available to them on B. You shouldn't necessarily be using all of Viper's utility before the round even starts. So now they've got really nothing to work with once the round gets into play, and now they're forced to save because they don't have anything. And that's another round on the board for Cloud9. And they're just giving away these rounds.
BOOGERMEN will, however, be working with from the shadows, and we have seen these omens get very aggressive with their ultimates. The one thing that BOOGERMEN are struggling to do is move on to these points without losing members being pressured out by Cloud9 Blue, despite the Viper ult utility, with that toxic screen always being there. So, if we want to see that Viper utility come into fruition, hopefully we'll see that from the shadows being used so you can actually move in and force Cloud9 Blue to play around it rather than seeing it come out and then entirely ignoring it, just the same as BOOGERMEN have been doing for the past 7 rounds.
Unfortunately, BOOGERMEN, again, economy not looking where it should be. We've got one player running out with a sheriff. Ooh, that's a fault line coming through. Manages to hit just about everybody. It doesn't force BOOGERMEN all the way back though, and I like this. They're not backing down just because a little bit of utility got thrown out. We see that a little bit too often. Now Instinct, oh no, uses the showstopper on the turret. Worth, I guess? We're finally seeing a little bit of that Viper utility up in heaven. Oh, Instinct thinks that he's cleared the corner with the satchel, but Mitch is able to take him down. And that's already number advantage for C9 Blue. The spike has already gone down, but it doesn't matter because C9 are quickly and methodically cleaning this up. Gonna drop the fault line there as well as they start to lose a few of their numbers, but doesn't really matter as there's one person left alive for BOOGERMEN and he's gonna hightail it out of there.
BOOGERMEN used that Omen ultimate as well from the shadows, was caught by Anderson. He used it to get into defensive form so they could try and pinch in on Cloud9 Blue, half going for Garage with that showstopper, obviously taking out whoever would be in corner, which turned out to be only a Killjoy turret, while he tried to press in through Alley. Unfortunately, Cloud9 Blue are able to get just enough members of BOOGERMEN out so that when that Omen rejoins the conversation, rejoins the fray, he is immediately ejected from it once more. Dev will now be investing in the operator. It's costing him in the entire pack of armor. No light, no heavy. It's going to be extremely risky play, especially because it is the Killjoy. You're going to be using utility, trying to hide in that natural cover to get a safe pick. First one will be going down in a couple of seconds. Your Viper Wall will let you move into ramps relatively uncontested, and this is what we wanted to see from BOOGERMEN, using that Viper utility to disguise where they want to go and set themselves up for better plays.
It's a risky play with the operator, making yourself the glass cannon, knowing you don't really have the mobility to get the value out of it. But if the rest of your team is getting pickoffs and kind of herding C9 into your crosshair, well, that looks like it's going to be a round win for BOOGERMEN. 3 very easy pickoffs. They didn't really have to do too much to get that, you know, spike plant's going to go down. The last 2 players left here for C9. Vice and Mitch pushing out towards the A site. They're not pushing together, so they might not necessarily be able to swing on each other, playing this very, very safely. Weird to see that they are actually opting to push this. On a 2v5, possibly looking to try and get some exit frags, but maybe. I mean, they're still dangerously close to where the action is. So there you go. You're looking for an exit frag. You get fragged on instead. Bit of a weird decision, I think.
If you're C9 Blue, you're looking at that point differential. Yes, the BOOGERMEN were able to come in with an operator, but it pushed their economy to the absolute brink. You weren't able to buy armor because you bought the operator. C9 Blue understand if they're able to remove that threat, BOOGERMEN once again will be on the back foot in terms of economy. Once again, will not be able to afford that weapon. And you have a lot of confidence if you're the attacking team when you have the operator. If you can shut down Heaven, you control so much of that A side. It becomes extremely difficult for the defense to rotate through mid because they're going to get turned around upon by an op, or even try and rotate through their own spawn all the way from B, because you're just going to get absolutely destroyed the second you peek out of A back rather.
And now Relix has got an operator of his own.
Buying an operator of their own so they can try and recontest that before BOOGERMEN getting close.
Well, it looks like he's going to be holding this angle on A, and there's three choices. You basically hold the op on the A site where Relix is now, you hold it on the B site down into Garage, or you hold it in mid. So we're going to have Relix on A side with that operator, and the rest of the team a little bit further towards the B side, waiting to see where BOOGERMEN decide to execute. And for the moment, it looks like it's going to be that B push. They've picked up the spike. They're pushing through Garage. They don't even know that there's an operator on the board. It just so happened that this is where they opted to push through. Fault line's going to come out. Manages to get a little bit. Deters their push for a second. The Killjoy ultimate's going to come through. Going to lock down the B site. And it's actually forcing a rotation here. Instead of waiting out in Garage, they're going to push up into mid.
30 seconds left.
Looks like they're going to go into mid and back onto B site as we see Instinct going back through Garage. They were just waiting out that ultimate. Now they're going to push in. The counter operator is still all the way on the A site. Off your feet! So there's a perfect opportunity here. Rolling Thunder's going to come out as well.
10 seconds left.
Not able to get the shot there with the operator as the Viper Orb pops up, obscures view somewhat. Shinobi decayed all the way down to 1 HP. The cleanup will come through at last, but this is going to be yet another round win for C9 Blue.
BOOGERMEN's economy as well. It's still not out of the woods. C9 Blue having a real good understanding. They know that the operator is there on A. It shuts it entirely down. If BOOGERMEN want to try and challenge that angle, they're the ones who have to get that first pick. So we are extremely likely to just see Relix continue to play that angle all the way from the back of A. And if you're BOOGERMEN, now you have to contest this. You will be making a little bit of noise in Garage to try and draw out, to bait out that rotation where the operator just becomes an absolute whimper of a weapon. But you are going to be walking into this.
BOOGERMEN have been forced to force buy here. If they lose this round, their economy is an absolute mess. They do have the Empress available to them. They've also got the Viper's Pit. And hopefully they'll be able to use that. Viper is all the way out in mid here, so might actually use that to create a bit of a diversion as the spike starts to move its way towards B. So not opting to go for the diversion play. In fact, they're going to be using that to hold down whichever site they manage to get the plant on, if they manage to get the plant. C9, of course, have been adamant about denying those plants time and time again. And again, we're seeing massive indecision here from BOOGERMEN. Moving towards the B side, but waiting for the rest of their team to get into position. Waiting a little bit too long. We know how dangerous that can be. And C9 are going to capitalize on that hesitation.
Just the Reyna left for BOOGERMEN. Intox has the spike, but does not have their life. And sort of returning to that point of Cloud9 Blade, just not allowing BOOGERMEN the time, the space to get these spike plants in. It means even if you lose the round on your attack, if you're able to get that spike down, you still get money. You still get the chance to try and even out that economy. But because you're not getting that spike planted, you're not given the cash, the credits to reflect that. So Cloud9 Blue, once again, going to be looking to completely stop BOOGERMEN in their tracks. This is a brutal buy, Sam. That is 2 operators. Oof. And an Odin.
What?
It's not in the hands of a Reyna with Empress, but it's still going to be absolutely devastating, especially played behind the operator. So if you try and press in on it aggressively through A, you have that spray to keep that player, keep that weapon safe.
Welcome to my world.
There's that Viper's Pit. It does finally come out. They're going to use it to bridge the gap onto A's site, but unfortunately, Welshie does not realize that Shinobi is right there. Instinct tries to dive onto him, but he's just that much better. And that's 2 picks going the way of C9 Blue. So that brings him to a 4v3 here. This, of course, is the last round in the half. So C9 Blue, that's kind of why they went for the most insane buy imaginable. And that's going to be some cleanup from Mitch and Tens. That's going to bring us into the next half, 10-2 in favor of C9. And I mentioned before, Boogermen, their Viper play looked better on attack. So on defense, I'm not too sure they're going to be able to turn this one around.
They have to, though, Sam, with the points looking the way they are. 10-2, you lose pistols. Cloud9 Blue are going to be on that 11th point. Boogerman will be on the back foot. On a broken bye, taking them 12-2. Boogerman have got to win this pistol round if they want to be able to set themselves up to come back in this series. It's not impossible. We've seen teams come back from scores like this, but it takes so much determination and a lot of early shots.
And we're going to say a big thank you to GoPuff for powering our replays. They're the official delivery partner of Nerd Street Gamers. If you guys head out right now, use the promo code NERDSTREET when you sign up on GoPuff. You'll get $4 off your first 4 orders. We're going to hop back into this match. And it is, of course, the first pistol round in the half. Mid control. They actually, Boogermen maintained a bit of mid control, using the Viper wall towards the end of the round. And this is a definite level up from their play from what we saw yesterday. But unfortunately for them, C9 seems to be a little bit more on top of their game here. It's going to be the first pistol round, going to C9 Blue, and that gets us one step closer to match point.
And this is the place that we talked about. You do not want to lose pistols because now you're on the broken by Cloud9 Blue. If they want to, they can invest heavily in this. They've got enough points as well to play around with economy to claw it back. If they want to invest heavily, if they want to force onto that Marshall, to absolutely guarantee they have the best possible position. They're not going to. It will be a lighter bite coming out. They want to set themselves up. They think that they can still win this with unparalleled aggression. Bulldog is going to be out for Vice. So if you're the breach, you can move in aggressively, you can use that spray.
They can't really afford to go in for massive buys. I mean, this is pretty standard once you win the first pistol round. So you come in with a couple of Bulldogs, you've got that firepower in your favor. But what's dangerous is that Boogermen also bought a couple of guns here, so if they lose this round, they're kind of screwed when it comes to match point. This is a really dangerous position to be in. But thankfully for them, Dev is a monster with this Bucky. Nobody was expecting him to be hiding just around the corner as Ten's last man standing gets annihilated. Anderson and Dev, alright, coming out of left field, expecting the A hit. Now they've got a little bit of money to work with, and they forced C9 into an unfavorable position with their own economy.
Oh, that was filthy, that Bucky play. But Boogermen are gonna have to pull it off 8 times in a row if they want to equalize this play, which is why Cloud9 Blue, even if they lose that round, even if their economy does go down the drink for a couple of rounds, they've still got the time, Sam, to play around and get it back on the straight and narrow. Sheriff's coming out, Tens wanting to make sure that they have control of Garage. They're going to be slowing them down with Instinct's Boom Bar, but Instinct slowed down even further. And now Cloud9 Blue can get fast.
Those Sheriffs are absolutely terrifying. An early pick off there for Tens. It's going to bring C9 into a pretty good position here. They do manage to open up a little bit of space, but they're opting not to push on B again. Made a lot of noise on B, and now they're making the rotate towards A. There's only one person on A. I think the information may have come from Relix, because he's all the way up in ramp, and he's saying, all right, guys, A is basically clear. They are going to have to contend with the Omen of Anderson. See if Anderson is able to get a pick. Doesn't get the pick. They're going going to see the dark cover going out, but there's counter dark cover just to deny him any sights of his own. And finally, BOOGERMEN are starting to make a rotate. They're also going for a pincer movement. As C9 go for the double bait. They were pushing onto B, move towards A, decide A is not the play, and go straight back towards B side. But there's only 2 people holding on B side here, so this is a fantastic opportunity to make something happen. That being said, BOOGERMEN don't really want to allow that. It's a 3v2 in favor of CLOUD9. Can they clutch this one out? Can they bring this to match point?
10 seconds
will go
left.
down. Well, Shepherd gets taken down by Shinobi. And that's it. We're on to match point.
C9 were able to get,
Match point.
well, try to get that plan as well, so they would be able to get as much eco as they could in this round. BOOGERMEN already coming in at a disadvantage in terms of points and weaponry. This is not a pretty buy in any meaning of the word, Sam. If you're Cloud9 Blue, you've got the Empress, you can move forward aggressively, and with that, get the first pick, pop your ult, and snowball right the way through. You've got to manage to just move through BOOGERMEN before this becomes a question of the recontest with that Killjoy, that lockdown in play. BOOGERMEN can just play for that recontest and completely ban you from using weaponry and even movement.
These 2 teams both looking a little shaky in terms of what their buys are, so on fairly even footing in that regard. But this time around, Cloud9 not messing around with Dev and that Bucky, opting to play a little bit more safely this time around, but they are going for the A hit. They know that it's match point. They do have the guns to back it up. In fact, Relix, who's been an absolute stellar player for C9, has a Vandal in hand, and that's a lot of firepower to try and make something happen. Mitch, all the way in mid, realizes that mid is clear. So he can make the call and say, if you guys want to rotate, you can make it through here. I've got you. But it looks like they're going to commit to this A site. Although that being said, the spike is all the way on its way back towards B. If you missed it, Shinobi has yeeted himself. He's on a flanking mission of
30
death
seconds
back
left.
towards the B side. In fact, the Reyna from BOOGERMEN is moving towards A as well. B is free and clear. This is such a big bait from C9, but it's going to work out so well, particularly if that Reyna doesn't realize. Finally, the rotation comes from BOOGERMEN. They realized, uh-oh, we've been twicked. Start moving their way onto the B site. A lot of utility is going to come out to try and deny any sort of push, to try and deny any sort of defuse. The spike will go down. Unfortunately, Instinct cannot win the 1v1 versus Mitch. And Mitch manages to pull back just in time, manages to live out. It's a 3v2 situation. The Killjoy ultimate is going to come down as well, just to deny anyone from getting onto site. There's no way that BOOGERMEN are going to push in while this ultimate is happening. Surely not. But they do. They push onto site. They're going to get detained. And if they get detained, then that makes it so much easier for C9 to win out this round. And there it is. Tens clutches it out, gets those last 3 kills. And Cloud9 Blue will win this quarterfinal and move up to the semis.
Empressing Reynas are so hard to win the duel against. And you have to ask yourself as well, because BOOGERMEN, they had the lockdown. We saw the lockdown come out. They knew the lockdown was the best bet, that they would be able to get that diffuse going through, but it's a little bit late because the Killjoy is the one of those ones who gets caught out, right? BOOGERMEN aren't expecting the big old bait and switch for everybody from C9 to suddenly move their way over to the B site. So they're on the back foot. They're forced into using the lockdown and committing onto the point before the lockdown is properly ready, before they can set themselves up to really capitalize on those pro numbers.
And we're going to pop up some replays for you guys to relive some of the magic from that last round. And once again, for the last time from myself, these instant replays brought to you by GoPuff, the official delivery partner of Nerd Street Gamers. Use the promo code NerdStreet when you sign up on GoPuff and you'll get $4 off your first 4 orders. GoPuff, ordered in seconds, delivered in minutes. And what wasn't delivered in minutes was the ending of 2 insane back-to-back 3-map series. Guys, that's going to wrap up this broadcast of the Nerd Street Gamers Open Qualifiers. I believe that the main stream is also busy wrapping up now. So we're going to be back tomorrow for the semifinals. There's going to be a semifinal on this stream. There's going to be a semifinal on the Nerd Street Gamers main stream. It's going to be absolutely wild. You don't want to miss out on that one. Again, you know, it all comes down to that seeding, how well you're going to place for these teams that are moving on into the main qualifier for the first strike event. Thank you, everybody, for chilling with us this evening. We've had a wonderful time. We hope you enjoyed yourselves too. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Same time, same place, Nerd Street Gamers. And thank you, of course, to the production crew. Thank you, Moxie, for being my co-caster this evening. I think we both had an absolutely wonderful time. So, guys, we'll see you tomorrow.